I arrived at my parents' house with 3 homemade pies balanced in one hand and an expensive bottle of wine in the other. Through the living room window, I could see my sister Amanda sprawled on the couch, scrolling through her phone while Mom fussed with her hair. Dad called out for me to hurry with the food. I took a deep breath before entering, wondering why I kept doing this year after year, setting myself up for the same disappointment. The kitchen counters were bare. Once again, I would be preparing Thanksgiving dinner entirely by myself. The aroma of roasting turkey filled the kitchen as I methodically chopped vegetables for the stuffing. Memories flooded back of standing on a step stool at age 10, learning to prepare holiday meals because Mom was too busy with Amanda. By 16, I was working weekends at the local diner to buy my own clothes, while my parents surprised Amanda with a new car for her sweet 16. When college acceptance letters arrived, I received only conditional congratulations. "That's nice, Jill, but how will you pay for it?" Meanwhile, they celebrated Amanda's acceptance with a lavish party, promising to cover all expenses. I worked 2 jobs through college, graduated with honors, and landed a corporate position right away. Amanda dropped out after 3 semesters, claiming college wasn't her thing. My parents consoled her, funding her, finding herself phase that involved backpacking through Europe. 6 months later, she enrolled at another university, only to drop out again. Each time, my parents dipped into their retirement savings to support her. "Jill, can you grab some more napkins from the pantry?" Mom called from the dining room, where she was arranging Amanda's carefully staged table-setting photos. "Sure, Mom," I replied, wiping my hands on a kitchen towel. The pantry door stuck slightly, and I gave it a firm push. Behind some cleaning supplies, I noticed a stack of folders. Normally, I wouldn't have looked, but the top one had my name written on it. Curiosity got the better of me. Inside were copies of checks I'd been sending my parents for years, money I thought was helping with their mortgage after Dad's health scare 3 years ago. But paper, clipped to each check, was a receipt for Amanda's luxury apartment in downtown Chicago, car payments for her BMW, and even receipts for her designer clothes. My hands trembled as I flipped through page after page of evidence. For 3 years, I'd been living frugally in my modest apartment, cutting corners and working overtime, believing I was helping my parents stay afloat. In reality, I'd been funding Amanda's lavish lifestyle. "Jill, what's taking so long?" Mom's voice startled me, and I quickly shoved the folder back, grabbing the napkins. "Coming," I called, my voice unnaturally high. At dinner, I tried to focus as everyone piled their plates with the food I'd spent hours preparing. Amanda took several photos of her plate before eating, tagging them with blessed. "Amanda, tell everyone about your trip to Paris," Dad prompted, beaming with pride. Amanda launched into a detailed account of her life, changing 2-week vacation, paid for with what I now knew was my money. My parents hung on her every word, occasionally interjecting with, "Isn't that amazing?" and "Our little girl is so worldly." When the conversation finally lulled, I cleared my throat. "I got promoted to senior financial analyst last week," I said, trying to keep my voice casual. "It comes with a significant raise." "That's nice, dear," Mom said, barely glancing my way before turning back to Amanda. "Now tell us about that cute French boy you mentioned." My grip tightened around my fork as Amanda continued her story. I stared at my plate, the food suddenly tasteless. "Oh, I almost forgot," Dad said, reaching for his wallet. "Amanda needs new tires for her car. It'll be about $800. "Can't she pay for her own tires?" The words slipped out before I could stop them. The table fell silent. 3 pairs of eyes stared at me in shock. "What did you say?" Dad's voice had an edge to it. "I just meant I started, but Mom cut me off. Your sister is pursuing her dreams, Jill. She needs our support." "And what about my dreams?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Dad waved his hand dismissively. "You've always been the responsible one. You're doing fine on your own." That's when everything changed. The folder I'd discovered in the pantry flashed in my mind. I couldn't hold back anymore. "Actually, I'm not fine. I've been sending you $2,000 every month for what I thought was your mortgage and Dad's medical bills." The color drained from both my parents' faces. Amanda looked confused. "Wait, what? You've been sending them money?" Amanda asked. "Yes," I said, looking directly at my parents. "But I just found out it's been going to your apartment, car, and shopping sprees." "You were snooping through our things?" Dad's voice rose, attempting to shift focus. "No. I accidentally found the folder in the pantry when I was getting napkins, the folder with my name on it. I turned to Amanda. Did you know about this? That all your luxuries have been coming from me, not them? Amanda's wide eyes and genuine confusion answered my question before she could. Mom? Dad? Is this true? The silence that followed was deafening. Mom nervously rearranged the silverware beside her plate while Dad's face reddened. Amanda looked between our parents and me, waiting for an explanation. We didn't want to burden you with the details, Amanda, Mom finally said. Your father and I just wanted to give you the opportunities we never had. At my expense? I asked incredulously. I've been living paycheck to paycheck, thinking I was helping keep a roof over your heads. Dad slammed his hand on the table, making the dishes rattle. Now listen here, Jill. We raised you. We put food in your mouth and clothes on your back. If we needed some help later on, that's the natural order of things. Help? I echoed. $2,000 a month isn't help, Dad. It's exploitation. And you lied about what it was for. We didn't lie, Mom interjected quickly. Your father did have that health scare, and the money has been helping the family. By family, you mean Amanda, I said flatly. Amanda shrank in her chair, looking genuinely uncomfortable for the first time. I didn't know, Jill. I swear I thought they were paying for everything. How could you possibly think they could afford a $2,000 apartment and $700 car payment on their retirement? I asked her. I don't know, she exclaimed, tears welling in her eyes. I never asked about money. They just always took care of everything. Dad pushed back from the table, standing to tower over me. That's enough, Jill. You've always been jealous of your sister. Just because you chose to work yourself to the bone doesn't mean she has to. Some people are meant to enjoy life, and some are meant to work hard. That's just the way it is. I stood up too, refusing to be intimidated. That's not how it works, Dad. Everyone should pull their own weight. I'm not Amanda's personal ATM. We've always known you were the strong one, Jill, Mom said, as if this were a compliment. Amanda is more sensitive. She needs more support. And what about what I need? I asked, my voice cracking slightly. Have you ever once asked me that? Oh, please, Dad scoffed. You've never needed anything from anyone. That's your whole identity, isn't it? Self-sufficient Jill. Because you gave me no choice, I shouted, surprising even myself with the volume. 29 years of suppressed rage bubbled to the surface. From the time I was a child, you made it clear I was on my own. Everything Amanda got handed to her I had to earn twice over, and I still never got the same recognition or love. That's ridiculous, Mom said, but her eyes couldn't meet mine. We love both our daughters equally. No, you don't, I said quietly, the truth of it settling over the table like a heavy blanket. You never have. Dad's face contorted with anger. Your job is to work while your sister enjoys life. Simple as that. That's your role in this family. If you have a problem with it, there's the door. He pointed dramatically toward the front of the house, clearly expecting me to back down as I always had before. Mom nodded in agreement, crossing her arms. I looked at their faces, the people who should have protected and loved me equally, but never had. Then I looked at Amanda, who at least had the decency to appear ashamed, though tears streamed down her face. Fine, I said, my voice steady and calm. I'll leave. And you can start paying your own bills. Simple as that. I reached for my purse and pulled out my phone. Right there at the table, I opened my banking app and canceled all the automatic payments to my parents. Then I removed my house key from my keyring and placed it on the table. Jill, don't be ridiculous, Mom started, her confident facade cracking for the first time. I'm being the opposite of ridiculous, I replied. I'm finally being sensible. The money stops now. You can't just cut us off, Dad sputtered, his face turning from red to purple. Watch me. I stood up and walked to the coat rack, sliding my arms into my jacket sleeves. I wish I could say this was a nice dinner, but we'd all know that's a lie. And I think we've had enough lies in this family. You'll regret this, Dad called after me. When you calm down and think about everything we've done for you. I turned back one last time. That's just it, Dad. I've spent my whole life thinking about what you've done for me and feeling guilty that it never seemed like enough. But now I'm going to think about what I need to do for myself. Happy Thanksgiving. The sound of the door closing behind me was the most liberating thing I'd ever heard. In my car, I sat for a moment, hands shaking on the steering wheel as the reality of what I'd just done sank in. Tears welled up in my eyes, Not from sadness, but from relief. For the first time in 29 years, I'd stood up for myself. As I pulled out of the driveway, I caught a glimpse of my parents and Amanda watching from the window, their faces a mixture of shock and panic. The weight that had been pressing on my chest for years began to lift, and I took what felt like my first full breath in decades. The road ahead was uncertain, but for once, it was my road, not one paved with obligations to a family that took me for granted. I turned on the radio and headed home, alone but somehow more complete than I'd ever been. 2 weeks of silence followed my Thanksgiving exit. No calls, no texts, not even an angry email. At first, the quiet was disconcerting, like the eerie calm before a storm. But as days passed, I discovered something unexpected. Peace. My apartment, which had always seemed too small and plain compared to Amanda's luxury high-rise, suddenly felt like a sanctuary. I added a few plants, hung artwork I'd been storing away, and created a space that was truly mine. For the first time, I didn't feel guilty about spending money on myself. At work, I scheduled a meeting with Brian, a colleague in financial planning whom I'd always respected. "I need some advice," I told him over coffee in the break room. "I've been supporting my parents and sister financially, and I've just cut them off. I'm worried there might be legal repercussions." Brian's eyebrows shot up. "How much were you giving them?" When I told him, he nearly choked on his coffee. "Monthly? Jill, that's more than most people's mortgages." "I know that now," I said ruefully. "They told me it was for my dad's medical bills and their mortgage. Turns out it was funding my sister's lifestyle." Brian's expression softened. "I'm sorry they took advantage of you like that, but legally, unless you signed a contract promising ongoing support, they don't have a case. Gifts aren't legally binding." Relief washed over me. "So they can't sue me or anything?" "They can try," he shrugged, "but they won't win. To be safe, though, document everything. If you have any texts or emails about what the money was supposedly for, save them." That afternoon, I created a folder with all the evidence I could gather: bank statements, text messages where my parents thanked me for helping with the medical bills, everything. It felt good to be proactive rather than reactive for once. Exactly 15 days after Thanksgiving, it happened. My phone exploded with notifications: 6 missed calls from Dad, 4 from Mom, and a barrage of texts ranging from concerned to outright hostile. "The mortgage payment bounced. Call us immediately. Your father is very upset. You need to fix this now. How could you do this to your family? After everything we've done for you?" The last one made me laugh out loud. After everything they'd done for me? Like what, making me financially independent from age 16 while spoiling my sister rotten? I took a deep breath and called my mother back. "Finally," she exclaimed when she picked up. "We've been trying to reach you for hours." "I was at work, Mom. Some of us have to be." Her sharp intake of breath told me the barb had landed. "That's uncalled for, Jill. We're in a crisis here. The bank called about the mortgage, and your father's heart medication refill was rejected at the pharmacy. We need you to send the money right away." The old Jill would have caved immediately at the mention of Dad's heart medication. The new Jill wasn't so easily manipulated. "I'm sorry to hear that, Mom, but as I said at Thanksgiving, I won't be sending money anymore." "This isn't a game, Jillian," she snapped, using my full name as she always did when angry. "Your father could have another heart attack over this stress." "Then perhaps you should use the money that was going to Amanda's BMW payment to buy his medication instead," I suggested calmly. A long pause followed. "It's not that simple," she finally said, her voice softer. "We've made commitments." "So have I, Mom. To myself. I've committed to stop enabling this dysfunctional family dynamic." "Enabling?" she sputtered. "Is that what your therapist is calling it? Are you seeing a therapist now?" "No, but maybe I should," I replied. "Maybe we all should." She hung up on me. The calls continued over the next few days, growing increasingly desperate. Dad left voicemails alternating between rage and pleading. Mom sent texts trying to guilt me with updates about bill collectors calling. I held firm, responding only to say that my decision was final. Then, Amanda showed up at my door. I hadn't seen my sister since Thanksgiving. Standing in my apartment hallway, she looked different, less polished, more human. Her designer clothes had been replaced with jeans and a simple sweater. Her carefully highlighted hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. "Can I come in?" she asked, her voice small. I hesitated, then stepped aside. Amanda had always been my parents' proxy, their secret weapon, when they really wanted something from me. But the genuine uncertainty in her eyes made me curious. "Nice place," she said, looking around my apartment with what seemed like actual interest rather than her usual condescension. "It's not downtown Chicago, but it's home," I replied, watching her carefully. She sat on my couch, fidgeting with the sleeve of her sweater. "They sent me to talk to you." I figured as much. "They're freaking out, Jill, like completely melting down. The bank called about foreclosure, and Dad says his doctor won't renew his heart medication without payment." I crossed my arms. And they need the money," she exclaimed. "Dad says you're punishing them because you're jealous of me, and it's not fair to risk his health over sibling rivalry." "Is that what you think this is?" I asked quietly. Amanda looked away. "I don't know what to think. All I know is that one minute everything was fine, and the next, they're telling me we might lose the house and it's because you've decided to be selfish." I couldn't help but laugh, which clearly confused her. "Amanda, do you have any idea how much money I've given them over the past 3 years?" She shrugged. "They said you helped out sometimes." $72,000, Amanda. That's how much I've helped out. And not for the mortgage or Dad's medical bills, but for your apartment, your car, and your shopping sprees. Her eyes widened. "That can't be right. They told me Grandma left them money, and that's why they could help me out while I figured out my career path. Grandma left them $20,000, which was gone within a year. Everything since then has been from me. But Dad's heart condition," she began. "What exactly did they tell you about Dad's heart condition?" I asked, suddenly alert. "That he had a major heart attack 3 years ago and needs expensive medication that insurance doesn't fully cover." She paused, seeing my expression. "That's not true, is it?" "He had a mild arrhythmia scare. One night in the hospital for observation, then he was released with a prescription that costs $40 a month with his insurance." Amanda's face crumpled. "They lied to me too?" "It seems that way." She stood up abruptly, pacing my small living room. "I can't believe this. All this time, I thought, and you thought, they played us both." It was the first time in our adult lives that Amanda and I were completely aligned. The realization seemed to hit her too, and she stopped pacing to look at me. "Jill, I'm so sorry. I really didn't know." The apology was so unexpected that I didn't know how to respond. My sister and I had never had an honest conversation, not one that wasn't filtered through our parents' manipulations. "I believe you," I finally said, "but that doesn't change the fact that I've been subsidizing your lifestyle while barely making ends meet myself." She sank back onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. "God, I feel terrible. All those vacations, the apartment, the car, I thought they could afford it. I never questioned it. And I never questioned why they suddenly needed so much financial help," I admitted. "We both got played." Amanda looked up, her makeup smeared from tears. "So what do we do now?" "We stand firm," I said. "They need to face reality. They've been living beyond their means and lying to both of us. That stops now." She nodded slowly, then reached for her purse. "I should go. They're waiting to hear if I convinced you." "What will you tell them?" Amanda stood, straightening her shoulders with newfound resolve. "The truth. That I know everything now, and I agree with you." As she headed for the door, I felt a strange new emotion toward my sister, something like respect. "Amanda," I called after her, "be prepared. They won't take this well." She turned back, a sad smile on her face. "I know. But it's time I grew up, isn't it? Better late than never." After she left, I sat in my quiet apartment feeling oddly hopeful. For the first time, I wasn't alone in standing up to my parents. And for the first time, I saw my sister as a potential ally rather than a rival. That hope was short-lived. The next morning, I woke to 37 new text messages from my parents, each more vitriolic than the last. They accused Amanda of betraying them, claimed I had poisoned her against them, and threatened everything from disowning us both to legal action for promised financial support. I blocked their numbers. That night, Amanda called, sobbing. "They kicked me out. They said I'm ungrateful and disrespectful, and if I'm taking your side, I can go live with you." My first instinct was to tell her to figure it out herself. Why should I help her when she'd benefited from my exploitation for years? But then I remembered she was a victim of their manipulation too, just in a different way. You can stay with me for 2 weeks, I found myself saying, but during that time, you need to find a job and start looking for your own place. Really? Oh my God, Jill, thank you! The relief in her voice was palpable. I promise I'll pull my weight. I'll even pay you back eventually. Let's start with you paying your own way forward, I said. The past is done. And so my sister moved in, bringing with her a mountain of designer clothes, but a surprisingly humble attitude. The transition wasn't smooth. Amanda had never done her own laundry or cooked a meal, but she was trying. For the first time since we were children, we were starting to feel like real sisters. The first holiday season without my parents was both liberating and painfully lonely. I threw myself into work, volunteering for extra projects to stay busy. My colleagues noticed the change in me. I was speaking up more in meetings, pitching ideas without fear, taking calculated risks I would have avoided before. Whatever you're doing differently, keep it up, my boss said after I presented a new financial strategy that saved the company thousands. You've really come into your own these past few months. It was true. Without the financial drain and emotional manipulation from my parents, I was flourishing. I'd started therapy to address the years of family trauma, joined a hiking club to make new friends, and even began dating again after a 3-year hiatus. Amanda was making progress too. She'd found a job as a receptionist at a marketing firm, her first real job ever, and was taking night classes in graphic design. She'd moved into a shared apartment with 2 roommates, much more modest than her previous place, but within her actual means. I never thought I'd say this, she admitted over coffee one Sunday, but I'm actually happier now, working towards something instead of just having it handed to me. It feels good. As Christmas approached, the inevitable invitations from extended family arrived. Most had heard only my parents' version of events and viewed me as the villain who had abandoned the family. I declined them all. Instead, Amanda and I decided to volunteer at a local homeless shelter on Christmas Day. As we served meals and distributed small gifts, I felt more connected to the true spirit of the holiday than I ever had during the tense, performative celebrations at my parents' house. "Merry Christmas, Jill," Amanda said, bumping my shoulder affectionately as we washed dishes at the end of the day. "Merry Christmas, Amanda," I replied, realizing with surprise that it truly was. January brought ice storms and a deep freeze both outside my window and in my relationship with the extended family. Word had spread about the Thanksgiving confrontation, but the story had been twisted beyond recognition. According to the family grapevine, I had cruelly cut off my loving parents without warning, refusing to help with my father's life, threatening medical condition out of petty jealousy toward my sister. The first attack came from Aunt Patricia, my mother's sister, who left a scathing voicemail. "I always knew you were cold, Jill, but I never thought you'd stoop this low. Your father could die because of your selfishness?" Next came emails from cousins I'd barely spoken to in years, each expressing their disappointment and shock at my behavior. Uncle Roger, my father's brother, even called my office, causing a scene with the receptionist when I refused to take his call. I maintained my silence, refusing to engage in the drama or defend myself against their one-sided understanding. This wasn't about convincing others. It was about maintaining the boundaries I'd finally established. The isolation stung, but I focused on building new connections. My therapy sessions helped me recognize how deeply the family dysfunction had affected my other relationships. I'd always kept people at arm's length, afraid to rely on anyone after being let down so consistently by those who should have protected me. "You're making excellent progress, Dr. Evans," my therapist told me during our 6th session. "But I want to caution you about something I'm seeing. You're swinging from one extreme to another, from over-responsibility to complete detachment from your family. Isn't that what I need to do?" I asked, confused. "Create distance from toxic people?" "Healthy boundaries are essential," she agreed. "But cutting off your entire extended family because they've only heard one side might be an overcorrection. Have you considered telling your truth to anyone who might listen?" I hadn't. The thought of defending myself, of making myself vulnerable by sharing the painful details, made my stomach clench. But she had a point. By staying silent, I was allowing my parents' narrative to be the only one. That evening, I drafted a simple email to Aunt Linda, my mother's youngest sister who had always seemed more reasonable than the rest. I explained the financial exploitation, the lies about my father's health, and the ultimatum that had led to my departure. I attached bank statements showing the transfers and screenshots of text messages that corroborated my story. I'm not asking you to take sides, I concluded. I'm simply offering another perspective. If you choose not to believe me, I understand. But I wanted you to have all the facts. I hit send before I could guess myself, then tried to forget about it. A week passed with no response, and I assumed Aunt Linda had dismissed my explanation like everyone else. Then my phone rang with her number. "Jill," she said when I answered, her voice gentle. "I got your email. I'm so sorry for what you've been through." The simple acknowledgement brought unexpected tears to my eyes. "You believe me?" "Of course I do. The evidence speaks for itself. But even without it, your parents did the same thing to my brother Tom 20 years ago." I nearly dropped the phone. Uncle Tom? But I thought he moved away because he got a job offer in Seattle. That's what they told everyone, Aunt Linda sighed. But the truth is, he confronted them about their manipulative behavior, and they turned the entire family against him. Sound familiar? My mind reeled. Uncle Tom had vanished from family gatherings when I was 9, appearing only briefly at my grandmother's funeral before disappearing again. He'd always been painted as the black sheep, the ungrateful son who abandoned the family for selfish reasons. "I had no idea," I whispered. "Your mom and dad are experts at creating narratives that make them the victims," Aunt Linda explained. "They did it to Tom, and now they're doing it to you. Why didn't you ever say anything?" She sighed heavily. "I should have. That's my failing. I didn't want to cause drama or get ostracized myself. But seeing the pattern repeat with you, I can't stay silent anymore." We talked for nearly 2 hours. Aunt Linda filled in gaps from my childhood that suddenly made sense, family conflicts I'd been too young to understand, patterns of favoritism that extended beyond just me and Amanda. By the time we hung up, I felt both validated and deeply sad for the unnecessary pain our family's dysfunction had caused. "I'm going to reach out to Tom," she promised. "He should know he's not alone either. Maybe it's time we all started healing." Just as I was beginning to feel less isolated, my parents escalated their campaign. On a Tuesday afternoon in February, my assistant hurried to my desk, looking uncomfortable. "Jill, there's a couple in the lobby insisting on seeing you. They say they're your parents, and it's an emergency." My blood ran cold. "They came to my workplace?" "They're making quite a scene," she said apologetically. "Security asked me to come get you." I found them in the lobby. My father read, faced and gesturing wildly while my mother dabbed at fake tears. Several colleagues were watching the spectacle, including my boss, Harold. "What are you doing here?" I asked, keeping my voice low and controlled. "Oh, now she acknowledges us," my father boomed, intentionally drawing more attention. 2 months of ignoring our calls, and now she asks what we're doing here. "Mr. and Mrs. Patterson, please lower your voice," the security guard warned. "This is a place of business." "Our daughter has abandoned us financially," my mother wailed dramatically. "After we sacrificed everything for her." Harold stepped forward, his expression concerned. "Jill, why don't you take this to the conference room? Give your family some privacy." That was exactly what they wanted, to get me alone, to wear me down. "No thank you," I said firmly. "Mom, Dad, I've made my position clear. I'm not discussing this, especially not here. See how she treats us?" My mother turned to the small crowd. "After all we've done." "I'm calling the police," the security guard said, reaching for his radio. "That won't be necessary," my father snapped, suddenly aware that his plan was backfiring. "We're leaving, but this isn't over, Jillian. You made promises to support us." "I made no such promises," I replied evenly. "And if you come to my workplace again, I will file for harassment." They left, but the damage was done. As I returned to my office, I could feel the stares and whispers following me. Harold appeared in my doorway minutes later. "Want to tell me what that was about?" he asked, closing the door behind him. I hesitated, embarrassed and concerned about how this might affect my professional reputation. "It's complicated family stuff," I said vaguely. "I'm sorry they brought it here." Harold sat down across from me. "Look, Jill, I don't need details, but if they come back, or if this escalates, I need to know for security reasons. Are you in any danger?" "No," I assured him. "They're manipulative, not violent. They're trying to pressure me into giving them money." He nodded thoughtfully. For what it's worth, I've known you for 5 years. You're one of the most responsible, ethical people on my team. Whatever's happening, I trust your judgment." His words meant more than he could know. "Thank you, Harold. I appreciate that." "Take the rest of the day," he suggested, standing. "And Jill, don't let toxic people derail your life, even if they're family. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is walk away." As I gathered my things, my phone buzzed with a text from Amanda. "Mom just called me crying about Dad having chest pains after you humiliated them at your office." "Did something happen?" I called her immediately. "They showed up at my workplace causing a scene, and now they're using Dad's health to manipulate you again." "I figured," she sighed. "They're escalating because nothing else has worked." "What did you tell them?" "That I'd call back after checking on Dad, then I called his doctor's office instead. They confirmed he had a checkup last week and his heart is fine. It's all manipulation, just like we thought." I felt a surge of pride for my sister. "Good for you, Amanda. That was smart." "I'm learning from the best," she replied, and I could hear the smile in her voice. That night, I received an unexpected call from a number I didn't recognize. Normally I wouldn't answer, but something told me to make an exception. "Hello, Jill. This is your Uncle Tom. Linda gave me your number. I think we have a lot to talk about." Uncle Tom's voice was deeper than I remembered, with a slight Pacific Northwest accent that hadn't been there when I was a child. We spoke for nearly 3 hours that first night, comparing notes on our parallel experiences with my parents. His story mirrored mine with eerie similarity. The exploitation, the favoritism, in his case, between him and my father's sister, and the character assassination when he finally stood up for himself. "It was like being erased from the family narrative," he said. "Like 20 years of my existence was rewritten to make me the villain." "That's exactly how it feels," I agreed, relieved to be truly understood. "But knowing you went through it too, it helps. It confirms I'm not crazy." "You're definitely not crazy, Jill, and you're not alone. After I talk with Linda and we sort through some things, I'd like to come visit you, if that's all right." The thought of reconnecting with this lost piece of my family history filled me with unexpected hope. I'd like that very much. We made tentative plans for him to visit in the spring, and I hung up feeling lighter than I had in months. The family circle was broken, but perhaps it could be rebuilt in a healthier way, with those who valued truth and respect. The following week brought a development I hadn't anticipated. My father had a genuine health crisis, a minor heart attack that landed him in the hospital. I learned about it not from my parents, but from Amanda, who had been notified as next of kin since I'd changed my emergency contact information at work. "The doctor says it's not severe," she told me over the phone, "but he'll need to stay for observation for a couple of days. Mom's with him now." "Are you going to the hospital?" I asked, unsure of my own response. "I think I should," she said carefully. "Whatever's happened between us, he is still our father. But I understand if you don't want to." I struggled with conflicting emotions, concern for my father's well-being warring with protective instincts. The last time I'd seen my parents, they had publicly humiliated me and threatened me. Going to the hospital risked more of the same, but staying away would only reinforce their narrative that I was heartless. "I'll go," I decided. "But I'm not staying long, and I'm not discussing money." "Understood," Amanda replied. "I'll meet you there in an hour?" When I arrived at the hospital, Amanda was waiting in the lobby. She looked tired but composed, dressed in the simple business casual attire she'd adopted since starting her new job. It was still strange to see her without the designer labels and perfectly styled hair, but the change suited her. She seemed more substantial somehow, less like a caricature of herself. "He's on the 3rd floor," she said, giving me a brief hug. "They're running some tests, so Mom's alone in the waiting room." I steeled myself for the confrontation. "How is she?" "Dramatic," Amanda rolled her eyes, alternating between genuine worry and performative grief for the nurses. "She's convinced they'll provide better care if they think she's devastated." I couldn't help but smile at my sister's newfound clarity about our mother's manipulation tactics. "Some things never change." "But we have," Amanda said firmly. "Remember that when she starts in on the guilt trips." The elevator ride to the 3rd floor felt like ascending to a battlefield. When we stepped into the cardiac unit waiting room, my mother was speaking intensely to a sympathetic-looking nurse. Her makeup was tastefully smudged enough to show distress, but not enough to look unattractive, and she was clutching a tissue that appeared suspiciously unused. She spotted us, and her expression flickered between genuine surprise at seeing me and calculation about how to use my presence to her advantage. The nurse excused herself, and my mother stood, opening her arms as if expecting an emotional reunion. "Oh, Jill, you came. I knew you would. Deep down, you've always been a good daughter." I accepted her brief embrace without returning it. "How is Dad?" She launched into a detailed account of his symptoms, the ambulance ride, and the doctor's preliminary assessments, emphasizing the severity and her own emotional suffering throughout the ordeal. The actual medical details were sparse. "What did the cardiologist say specifically?" I asked, cutting through the dramatics. My mother faltered. "Well, something about a minor blockage. Amanda can tell you more. She spoke with him." "It's a partial blockage in one artery," Amanda confirmed. "They're doing an angiogram now to determine if he needs a stent, but the doctor described it as moderate and said with medication and lifestyle changes, he should recover fully." "Which means he'll need proper care and monitoring," my mother interjected, seizing the opening, "and with our financial situation being what it is because of certain decisions." She gave me a pointed look. "I'm happy to pay for Dad's legitimate medical expenses," I said calmly. "I'll speak with the hospital billing department and arrange to cover what insurance doesn't. But I'll pay them directly, not through you." Her face tightened. "That's very controlling, Jill." "It's very transparent," I corrected, "which is what we need right now." Before she could respond, a nurse appeared. "Mrs. Patterson, your husband is back from his procedure. The doctor would like to speak with you and your family." We followed her to a small consultation room where Dad was lying on a bed, looking pale but alert. His eyes widened when he saw me, and I detected a momentary flash of shame before his expression hardened. "Well, look who decided to show up," he said weakly. "Dad, please," Amanda sighed. "Let's not do this now." The doctor, a woman in her 50s with a direct manner, entered before he could respond. "Mr. Patterson, I have good news. The blockage was minimal enough that we've decided against a stent for now. With medication and significant lifestyle changes, particularly diet, exercise, and stress reduction, we expect a full recovery." She reviewed his prescribed medications and care instructions, then asked if we had questions. My mother immediately launched into a speech about their financial hardships and concerns about affording the care he needed. The doctor glanced at me and Amanda, clearly uncomfortable with the personal information being shared. "There's a hospital financial aid program," she said. "I'll have someone from billing come speak with you." After she left, my father turned to me. "See what you've reduced us to? Begging for charity." "That's enough," Amanda said firmly. "Jill has already offered to pay for your medical expenses directly to the hospital. That's more than generous considering everything that's happened. We wouldn't need charity or her conditional help if she hadn't abandoned us," my mother sniffed. I took a deep breath, reminding myself that engaging in their drama served no purpose. "I'm glad you're going to be okay, Dad. I'll arrange the medical payments on my way out." As I turned to leave, I noticed a file folder on the bedside table labeled Patterson Family Documents. Something about it caught my eye, perhaps because it seemed out of place in a hospital room. "What's that?" I asked, pointing to the folder. My mother rushed to grab it. "Nothing important. Just some paperwork the nurse asked for." But her reaction told me otherwise. I remembered Brian's advice about documenting everything, and a suspicion formed. "May I see it?" I asked, already reaching for the folder. "Absolutely not." My mother clutched it to her chest. "These are private family matters." Amanda stepped forward. "Mom, what are you hiding? If it's just insurance paperwork, why can't we see it?" A silent standoff ensued, broken only when a hospital aide entered to check my father's vital signs. My mother used the distraction to slip the folder into her oversized purse. After the aide left, I decided on a direct approach. "Mom, I think you brought those documents here specifically because you knew Amanda or I might come. What are they?" "None of your business," my father interjected, his voice stronger now. "Some things are still private between your mother and me." "Like the remortgage papers for the house?" I asked, taking a shot in the dark based on their financial desperation. The flash of panic in both their eyes confirmed my guess. Amanda gasped beside me. "You remortgaged the house? The house that Jill has been helping pay for?" "We had expenses," my father said defensively. Your apartment wasn't cheap, Amanda. She paled. So you put your house at risk to fund my lifestyle? And let Jill think she was helping pay off the original mortgage? We did what we had to do for this family, my mother insisted. And we wouldn't be in this mess if Jill hadn't cut us off without warning. I want to see those papers, I said firmly. And any other financial documents you have. No more secrets. Absolutely not. My father tried to sit up, triggering one of the monitors to beep alarmingly. A nurse hurried in. Mr. Patterson, you need to remain calm. Your blood pressure is spiking. Tell them to leave, he pointed at Amanda and me. They're causing my stress. The nurse turned to us apologetically. Perhaps you could come back later? He really does need to keep his stress levels down. Of course, I agreed, not wanting to cause a scene like my parents had at my workplace. But before we go, I turned to my mother. I'll be filing a formal request with the bank for all documents related to the mortgage on your house. Since I've been making payments, I have a right to know where my money went. My mother's face drained of color. You wouldn't dare. Try me, I replied, with a calm I didn't entirely feel. No more manipulation, Mom. It stops now. In the hallway outside, Amanda leaned against the wall, looking shaken. I can't believe they remortgaged the house to pay for my stuff. All this time, I thought. They wanted you dependent, I said gently. Just like they wanted me to feel responsible. It gave them control. What do we do now? She asked. We keep standing firm, I replied. And we get to the bottom of exactly what they've been doing with all that money. Over the next week, I did exactly what I'd promised. I contacted the bank, submitted formal requests for documentation, and consulted with a financial advisor about my legal rights given my history of payments. What I discovered was worse than I'd imagined. Not only had my parents remortgaged their home, which had been nearly paid off before my father's health scare 3 years ago, but they had taken out a second mortgage just 6 months prior. The combined debt was staggering, far more than could be explained by Amanda's lifestyle or any medical expenses. When I received copies of their recent bank statements through my formal inquiry, another truth emerged. Substantial withdrawals to a casino in a neighboring state, dating back years. My father had a gambling problem that had been hidden from both Amanda and me. Armed with this information, I requested a meeting with both my parents. They agreed, likely assuming I was finally giving in to their pressure. We met at a neutral location, a private room at the local library that I reserved for family business. They arrived looking smug, clearly expecting capitulation. Instead, I laid out the bank statements, mortgage documents, and casino receipts on the table between us. Would you like to explain these? I asked quietly. Their expressions changed from confusion to shock to defensive anger as they realized what they were looking at. How dare you invade our privacy like this? My father blustered, but there was fear behind his outrage. The privacy you surrendered when you lied to get my money? I countered. When you claimed it was for medical bills and the mortgage, not gambling and luxury expenses for Amanda? I have a slight recreational habit, he admitted reluctantly. But it's under control. $50,000 in casino losses last year alone is not under control, Dad. And that doesn't include the cash withdrawals we can't track. My mother began to cry, but for once, the tears seemed genuine. We never meant for it to go this far. It started small, just a little help from you while your father got his. Issues. Under control. But then it was so easy to just ask for more, and you never questioned it. Because I trusted you, I said, the hurt still fresh, despite all I'd learned. And you exploited that trust while turning Amanda and me against each other. We did what we thought was best, my father insisted. But his voice lacked conviction. Best for whom? I asked. Not for me, working myself to exhaustion to support your lies. Not for Amanda, raised to be dependent and entitled. Not even for yourselves, drowning in debt and deception. They had no answer for that. Here's what happens now, I continued, sliding a folder toward them. I've outlined 3 options. 1. You sell the house, pay off your debts, and start fresh with financial counseling that I will arrange and pay for. 2. You declare bankruptcy and face the consequences of your actions without my intervention. 3. You agree to family counseling, complete financial transparency, and a strict repayment plan for the money you've taken under false pretenses. My father started to object, but my mother placed a hand on his arm. For the first time, she was looking at me with something resembling respect. May we have some time to discuss this? She asked quietly. Take all the time you need, I replied, standing. But understand this. There is no fourth option where I simply start sending money again and we pretend none of this happened. Those days are over. As I walked out, leaving them with the evidence of their deception spread before them, I felt not vindictive, but sad. Sad for all of us and the years we'd lost to their dysfunction. But beneath the sadness was something stronger pride in myself for finally breaking the cycle, and hope that perhaps, with everything exposed to the light, healing could begin. The following week passed in tense silence. I had laid out my terms, and now I waited, focusing on my own life rather than obsessing over my parents' response. Amanda and I met for dinner, comparing notes on our separate journeys of recovery. I started therapy, she announced over Thai food. My therapist says I have a classic case of golden child syndrome mixed with financial dependence. That sounds about right, I nodded, impressed by her self-awareness. How does it feel to put a name to it? Validating and terrifying, she admitted. Validating because it confirms I wasn't just a spoiled brat by choice, I was groomed to be dependent. Terrifying because now I have to figure out who I am without all that. You're doing great so far, I said, and meant it. In just a few months, Amanda had transformed from a helpless, entitled adult child into someone taking responsibility for her life. What about you? She asked. Have your sessions been helping? Slowly, I acknowledged. Dr. Evans says I have eldest daughter syndrome with a side of codependency. Apparently, I've been trying to earn love through achievement and caretaking my whole life. Amanda winced. That sounds exhausting. It was. Still is, sometimes. But recognizing the pattern helps me catch myself when I start falling back into it. Our conversation was interrupted by both our phones buzzing simultaneously. We exchanged glances, knowing what it meant, a group text from our parents. We've made our decision, the message read. We'd like to meet tomorrow evening to discuss. Amanda looked at me nervously. Which option do you think they chose? Honestly, I have no idea. But whatever they decided, we stay united. No more playing us against each other. She reached across the table to squeeze my hand. Agreed. Sisters first. The meeting took place at my apartment, my territory, my rules. Amanda arrived early to provide moral support, and we spent a few minutes reviewing our boundaries and what we hoped to accomplish. When our parents arrived, I was struck by how much smaller they seemed. My father, once an intimidating presence, looked diminished in a way that had nothing to do with his recent health scare. My mother, typically perfectly put together to maintain appearances, had visible roots in her hair and minimal makeup. We sat in my living room, the air thick with unspoken emotions. I waited for them to break the silence. We've decided on option 3, my mother finally said. Family counseling, financial transparency, and a repayment plan. I nodded, hiding my surprise. I had expected them to choose bankruptcy or selling the house options that would be painful but wouldn't require the vulnerability and hard work of family therapy. May I ask why that option? I asked, genuinely curious. My parents exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. My father cleared his throat. Because we want a chance to fix what we've broken, he said, his voice rough with emotion. Not just the financial mess, but everything else. We've been talking a lot, my mother added, about how we got here, about the way we've treated both of you. It hasn't been easy to face. Particularly for me, my father admitted. I've had to acknowledge some hard truths about my behavior. The gambling, the favoritism, the manipulation. I'm not proud of any of it. I studied their faces for signs of the usual manipulation, but for perhaps the first time in my adult life, they seemed genuinely contrite. Still, years of deception had taught me caution. Words are easy, I said carefully, but this will require real change and hard work from all of us. We understand, my mother nodded. We've already contacted a financial counselor who specializes in gambling addiction, and your father has his first appointment next week. And we found a family therapist who takes our insurance, my father added. If she's acceptable to you both, we could start as early as next month. Amanda, who had been quietly observing, finally spoke. I have a question. What happens when the work gets hard? When you have to really face the damage you've caused? Will you stick with it, or find reasons to blame us and quit. Our parents flinched at her directness, unused to Amanda challenging them in any way. That's a fair question, my father acknowledged. I can't promise we won't struggle or make mistakes, but I can promise that I'm motivated by something stronger than pride now. What's that? Amanda pressed. Fear, he said simply. Fear of losing both my daughters for good. Fear of spending whatever years I have left alone with my regrets. I don't want that future. My mother nodded in agreement, tears welling in her eyes. We've already lost so much time with you both. We don't want to lose any more. A heavy silence fell over the room as Amanda and I absorbed their words. Part of me wanted to believe them immediately, to rush into reconciliation and the family healing I'd always craved. But the wiser, more cautious part of me recognized that true change would take time and consistent effort to prove. I'm willing to try family therapy, I said finally. But with conditions. Complete financial transparency from the start. No more secrets, no more manipulation. And if at any point I feel we're sliding back into old patterns, I reserve the right to step back. Same for me, Amanda added. And I need something else too. I need you both to support my independence, not try to keep me dependent. Our parents nodded solemnly. We agree to your terms, my father said, and we have something for you, Jill. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded document, passing it across to me. I opened it cautiously, then felt my breath catch as I realized what I was holding a copy of their will. We've updated it, my mother explained. Everything is now divided equally between you and Amanda, as it always should have been. We've also added a letter acknowledging the financial support you've provided over the years. I scanned the document, noting the official notary stamp and signatures. Why show me this now? Because you deserve to know that even before all this happened, we had arranged to leave everything to Amanda, my father admitted. It was wrong, and it's been corrected. No more secrets. Amanda gasped beside me. You were going to cut Jill out completely? After everything she's done for this family? My parents had the grace to look ashamed. We justified it by telling ourselves Jill would be fine on her own, and you would need more support, my mother explained. It was part of the same toxic pattern, and we were wrong. Amanda stood abruptly, pacing my small living room with agitated steps. Do you have any idea how damaging this was? Not just the will, but all of it making me the favored child, making Jill the responsible one, pitting us against each other? Her outburst seemed to catch our parents off guard. Throughout our childhood, Amanda had been the emotionally fragile one, quick to tears but rarely to anger. Now she stood before them, righteous indignation radiating from her as she continued. I spent my entire life feeling entitled to special treatment while simultaneously feeling worthless because I knew I hadn't earned any of it. I never developed skills or confidence or independence because you made sure I didn't need to. And Jill, she turned to me, her eyes bright with unshed tears. Jill never got to just be a daughter. She had to be the responsible one, the reliable one, the one who sacrificed everything while getting nothing in return. Our parents sat in stunned silence as Amanda gave voice to truths they'd never been forced to face so directly. We're both damaged by what you did, she concluded, her voice breaking slightly. And now we have to unlearn all these toxic patterns you taught us. Do you understand how hard that is? My father nodded slowly, looking truly humbled for the first time in my memory. I do now, he said quietly. And I'm sorry. More sorry than I can express. My mother wiped tears from her cheeks. We never meant to hurt you. Either of you. We thought we were doing what was best, but we were wrong. So wrong. The thing is, I said, finding my voice, you did hurt us. Intentions don't change that fact. And now we all have to decide if we're willing to do the hard work of healing. We are, my father said firmly. Whatever it takes. And strangely, for the first time I believed him. Not completely trust would take much longer to rebuild, but enough to take this first step toward a new kind of family relationship. The first therapy session was scheduled for the following month. In the meantime, my parents enrolled in a financial management course, and my father joined Gamblers Anonymous. Amanda continued her therapy and job training, growing more confident each week. I focused on my career and my own healing, setting aside time for activities I enjoyed rather than working constantly. Uncle Tom visited as planned, bringing with him old family photos and stories that helped me see my childhood from a new perspective. He had found peace and purpose far from the family dysfunction, building a life based on his own values rather than our parents' expectations. It took me years to stop being angry, he told me over coffee in my living room. But eventually I realized that staying angry was giving them power over my present, not just my past. I'm not sure I'm ready to forgive them yet, I admitted. Forgiveness isn't an event, Jill. It's a process. And it's not really about them, it's about freeing yourself from the burden of resentment. As the date of our first family therapy session approached, I felt a mix of anxiety and cautious hope. The day before, Amanda called, sounding nervous. "What if tomorrow goes badly?" she asked. "What if they revert to their old patterns and blame us for everything?" "Then we leave," I said simply. "We've both learned that we can survive without them, that knowledge is power." "You're right," she said after a moment. "No matter what happens tomorrow, we'll be okay. We have each other now." That night, I reflected on the incredible journey of the past 6 months. From the confrontation at Thanksgiving to this moment of tentative reconciliation, so much had changed. I had changed. The people-pleasing daughter desperate for approval had been replaced by a woman who knew her worth and could stand firmly in her truth. Whatever happened next, I knew I would never go back to the way things were. The cycle of enabling and exploitation had been broken for good. And in its place, perhaps something healthier could grow, a family relationship based on honesty, respect, and genuine care rather than obligation and manipulation. As I drifted off to sleep, I felt something I hadn't expected, not just hope for the future, but pride in the present, pride in the strength it had taken to say enough, pride in the boundaries I'd established and maintained, and most of all, pride in the person I was becoming, someone who valued herself enough to demand the same from others. 6 months after that first therapy session, we gathered around my parents' dining table for a very different kind of family dinner. The tension and manipulation that had characterized our previous gatherings was noticeably absent, replaced by something I'd never quite experienced with my family before: authenticity. My father, looking healthier than he had in years, carried a platter of grilled vegetables to the table. "I never thought I'd say this, but I don't even miss the steak," he chuckled, patting his noticeably slimmer waistline. The healthy diet recommended by his cardiologist had become a family project, with all of us exchanging recipes and cooking tips. My mother, who had returned to teaching part-time after years of claiming she needed to be available for Amanda's supposed emergencies, smiled as she set down a bowl of quinoa salad. "Jill, would you like to share your news? You've been practically glowing since you arrived." 6 months ago, this question would have filled me with suspicion. Was she setting me up to be dismissed or redirecting attention to Amanda? But the months of therapy had created genuine change. My mother was actually interested in my life, with no hidden agenda. "I got the promotion to Director of Financial Analysis," I announced, allowing myself to fully enjoy the moment. "It comes with a substantial raise and a team of 6 analysts reporting to me." "That's wonderful," my mother exclaimed, with genuine enthusiasm. "Your hard work is being recognized, as it should be." "Congratulations, sweetheart," my father added, raising his water glass in a toast. "We're so proud of you." Amanda reached over to squeeze my hand. "Nobody deserves it more. You're going to be an amazing leader." Their sincere celebration of my achievement felt foreign but wonderful. For the first time, I could share my success without it being minimized, dismissed, or overshadowed by Amanda's latest drama. "Thank you," I said, feeling the warmth of proper family support. "But I want to hear Amanda's news too. How did the client presentation go?" Amanda's face lit up. "They loved the design concept. If all goes well, it could lead to a permanent position with the agency." "That's fantastic," I replied, genuinely happy for her progress. In the months since our family confrontation, Amanda had discovered a natural talent for graphic design. The introductory night classes had led to an internship, and now she was on the verge of launching a real career. "We have news too," my father said, glancing at my mother. "We've finished paying off the gambling debts." This was significant. After full financial disclosure, we discovered that my father's gambling addiction had created nearly $70,000 in debt beyond the remortgaged house. They had been making steady payments from their own income, with no financial help from me. "That's a major milestone, Dad," I acknowledged. "How does it feel?" "Liberating," he admitted. and humbling. I never thought I'd dig myself out of that hole. We never thought we'd dig ourselves out, my mother corrected gently. We created the problem together, with my enabling and denial. This was another change, my mother taking responsibility rather than blaming others or making excuses. The family therapy sessions had been brutal at times, forcing each of us to confront uncomfortable truths about our roles in the dysfunction. But the honesty had cleared the air, allowing authentic relationships to form where manipulative ones had existed before. I'm proud of you both, I said, meaning it. Financial recovery takes discipline and commitment. Speaking of financial matters, my father said, sliding a check across the table to me. This is the first installment of paying you back. It's not much, but it's a start. I looked at the check, $500, and felt a complex mix of emotions. It wasn't about the money itself, which was indeed a small fraction of what they'd taken over the years. It was about the acknowledgement, the concrete action backing up their words of remorse. Thank you, I said simply. This means a lot. We know we can never fully repay you, my mother added. Not just financially, but for the years of manipulation and the emotional toll it took. But we want you to know we're committed to making amends however we can. Amanda raised her glass. I'd like to propose a toast to new beginnings and healthier relationships. We clinked glasses, the simple ritual sealing something important. As we ate dinner, conversation flowed naturally. We discussed work, shared funny stories from our weeks, and made plans for a weekend hike together. It was ordinary family conversation, the kind most people would take for granted. But for us, it represented a monumental shift. After dinner, as Amanda and I washed dishes side by side, she nudged me with her elbow. Remember last Thanksgiving? Would you have ever imagined we'd be here now? Never, I admitted, handing her a plate to dry. I thought I was permanently cutting ties that day. I'm glad you didn't, she said softly. Or at least, that you were open to trying again when they showed they were willing to change. Me too, I realized with some surprise. As painful as the journey has been, I think we're all better for having gone through it. Later, as I prepared to leave, my father pulled me aside. Jill, there's something I've been wanting to tell you. That day at Thanksgiving, when you stood up and walked out, it was the most devastating moment of my life. But it was also necessary. You forcing us to face the truth saved this family. Tears pricked at my eyes, unexpected and unwelcome. I didn't do it to save the family, Dad. I did it to save myself. I know, he nodded. And that's what makes it so powerful. You chose yourself after a lifetime of putting everyone else first. You showed tremendous courage. Thank you for acknowledging that, I said, the words catching in my throat. He hugged me then, a real hug, not the perfunctory embrace of obligation we'd shared in the past. I'm so sorry for all the years I took you for granted. For all the times I made you feel like your only value was in what you could provide for us. You are worth so much more than that, Jill. You always were. In the car driving home, I reflected on the incredible transformation our family had undergone. The change hadn't been easy or quick. There had been setbacks, moments when old patterns threatened to reemerge, when trust was tested, when the weight of past hurts made moving forward seem impossible. But gradually, step by step, we had created something new. My parents had taken responsibility for their actions and made concrete changes. Amanda had developed independence and a sense of purpose. And I had learned that standing up for myself didn't mean losing my family. It meant creating the possibility of a healthier one. The most profound change, though, was within myself. I no longer defined my worth by what I could do for others or how much I could sacrifice. I had discovered the power of boundaries, the freedom of saying no, and the joy of directing my energy toward my own goals and dreams. I pulled into my driveway, noticing the flower boxes I'd recently installed on my porch windows, a small act of permanence, of making my space truly mine. My phone buzzed with a text from Amanda. Dinner was really nice. Love you, sis. Such a simple message, but one that would have been unimaginable a year ago. I smiled as I replied, Love you too. Inside, I kicked off my shoes and settled on the couch with a glass of wine. On my coffee table sat a framed photo, a new one, taken just last month at Uncle Tom's beach house where we'd all gathered for a weekend. In it, Amanda and I stood arm in arm, laughing at something off camera. My parents and Uncle Tom flanked us, all of us looking relaxed and genuinely happy. It wasn't a perfect family by any conventional standard. We still had work to do, wounds still healing, trust still being rebuilt, but it was real authentic in a way our family had never been before. The facade of perfection had been replaced by something much more valuable: honesty. The journey had taught me the most important lesson of my life: that real love doesn't demand sacrifice or subjugation. Real love makes room for boundaries, respects individual needs, and celebrates growth rather than enforcing roles. Real love is honest, even when honesty is difficult. That Thanksgiving confrontation had been the most terrifying moment of my adult life, walking away from everything familiar, choosing myself when I'd been conditioned never to do so. But that one act of courage had set in motion a transformation that benefited not just me but everyone in my family. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is say enough, not as a final goodbye, but as the first word in a new conversation about how we deserve to be treated. Sometimes walking away is the only way to create the possibility of coming back together on healthier terms. As I sat in my peaceful living room, I felt grateful not just for the reconciliation, but for the breakdown that made it necessary. Sometimes systems need to collapse completely before they can be rebuilt properly. Sometimes relationships need to break before they can heal. And sometimes, the most loving thing we can do for ourselves and for others is to stand firm in our truth and let the chips fall where they may. Because only when we value ourselves enough to demand respect can we create connections that truly nurture rather than deplete us. That's the lesson I'll carry forward. That self-respect isn't selfish. It's the foundation upon which all healthy relationships are built. And that sometimes the most difficult conversations lead to the most meaningful connections. Have you ever had to set a difficult boundary with someone you love? How did it change your relationship? I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that standing up for yourself is an act of courage, not selfishness. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I wish you the strength to honor your own worth in all your relationships.